In the summer of 1777, the British had set their sights on capturing Philadelphia, the home of the Continental Congress. They needed a win after the stinging losses at the beginning of the year in Trenton and then Princeton. Yeah, I'd been planning to attack Philadelphia, that city of brotherly love, since 1776, but winter snuck up on us, so we weren't able to. In fact, I spent the first part of the summer in 77 in New Jersey trying to lure Washington into a new battle, but the general wasn't biting. For several months, the British discussed different plans to attack Philadelphia, but the three major British generals in the colonies weren't in agreement. The British reinforcements arrived later than anticipated in late August 77, which gave Washington plenty of time to prepare. We started boarding nearly 17,000 men on July 8th on the ships with the plan to head south along the Atlantic and then sail up the Delaware Bay to approach Philadelphia. We knew the British would be approaching, but thought for sure that we could stop them somewhere along the way. We reached the Delaware Bay on July 30th and thought that we could sail up it, but we heard that there were problems, some sort of obstructions in the bay. What in the world? Turned out to be bad intel. In any case, we ended up sailing up the Chesapeake Bay. We spotted Howe's fleet in the northeast Chesapeake Bay on August 22nd. We were about 16,000 men and not in a bad position to take on the Brits. We had recently marched through Philadelphia a bit earlier, saying hi to old John Adams and grabbing a few drinks and refreshments at the local taverns before making our way west. The men and I were exhausted after our long journey, but we had to press on. We moved forward on September 3rd in two divisions, one commanded by the Hessian General Nipfelsen, the other by Major General Earl Charles Cornwallis. The two columns converged at what is now Glasgow, Delaware. We had a long march towards Philadelphia. A few of my troops tried to actually encounter the Brits as they headed east towards Brandywine River. On September 9th, Washington placed his troops along the Brandywine River to guard all of the fords, aka river crossings. He was hoping to force a fight at Chad's Ford, which was an advantageous position for the colonists. Or so we thought. In reality, we British knew the area better even than Washington himself and planned to march and cross at Wister's Ford, one that Washington did not have guarded. In fact, I decided to pull the old switcheroo flank move on Washington again. Reports received on September 11th were confusing. Some said that all the British troops were marching towards Chad's Ford, but others contradicted that. I kept my troops at Chad's Ford because that's where I thought the entire British force was headed. Unfortunately, I was wrong. It was true that we had sent some men under General von Nipfelsen against the Americans, but the majority of my forces were going to cross the Brandywine River further north to avoid detection. We started off around 5 a.m. on September 11th, crossed the West Branch and then the East Branch. Thank goodness we could use the fog to our advantage. By mid-afternoon, the British had bypassed Washington, crossing at Wister's Ford, and had the strategic advantage and were gunning for the Americans. I ordered General John Sullivan and Lord Stirling to shore up the right flank where Howe's forces had suddenly appeared, but they were overrun. I also wanted my men to stand firm at the Quaker Meeting House, but they too were overrun. It was an utter and abysmal failure. Yikes! Washington, however, was determined to make sure that it didn't get any worse. He had Nathaniel Greene and his division serve as a rear guard to allow the Patriots to retreat to Chester. Marquis de Lafayette helped with maintaining order in the retreat, even though he was wounded. The Battle of Brandywine cost Washington around 1,000 killed, wounded, while the British losses were significantly less, about 93 killed and 500 wounded. We took a whooping, but it wasn't a disaster. The British didn't come after us too hard, so my army was still intact. Well, we were too doggone tired. One of my men even wrote in his journal, "Night and the fatigue the soldiers had undergone prevented any pursuit." In any case, a win is a win, and I'll take it. Within 2 weeks, though, the British were able to capture Philadelphia because Washington had not been able to attack from a strategically advantageous position prior to Howe and his men reaching Philadelphia, bringing the Patriot capital into British hands.